Hi, my name is Hidden, and the YouTuber I love Compossible a lot just falsely copyright struck my channel. This video will have minimal editing because frankly, this is not a video meant for viewing pleasure, but something I need people to hear. On the 13th of October, I love Compossible a lot, who I'll be referring to as KP from now on, struck the video I made from a draft of a Q&A script, and it'll be taken down on the 19th of October, leaving me with a copyright strike on my channel and the opportunity to appeal said strike by leaving my docs with KP. If the video disappears, you know why, but there are other resources to find it. The Q&A was handed to me with full consent. I did not steal it. In my call with KP, linked in the description, you can hear her give me full access to a draft of what she was meant to put out. This is blatant abuse of the copyright system. My video, despite being based on a draft of her script, falls under fair use in my opinion. Fair use is usually defined under 4 categories, which I've plucked from the article on fair use on YouTube from Google. Purpose and character of use. Is the new work transformative? Does it add new meaning or a different purpose? Or is it a direct copy? I would argue, given that KP has never uploaded the Q&A herself, and it only being a draft, it was transformative. I added my own visuals rather than showing the script on screen, had my husband read it out with commentary, used the AI screenshot that KP uses, something she doesn't have copyright over, and read those off, added both my intro and outro, and more. I do not see a space in which you could argue this is a direct copy, nor does it serve the same purpose as KP's Q&A would. While she hoped it exonerated her, I used it to warn people and make the audience aware that she planned on accusing someone she disagreed with of a sex crime. Again, nature of the copyrighted work. It's a draft of her script, something KP can change and upload on her own at any time. It was not a finished script as she demanded my input on it. Amount and substantiality of the portion used. While I did use the script in its entirety, huge part of it are generated through AI and therefore do not fall under KP's copyright. We have also added our own commentary, jokes, and other things such as the entirety of the visuals, therefore there's a substantial part that isn't KP's work. Effect of the use of the potential market. My upload barely impacted KP's market. I am a 300 sub channel with a video that barely reached 2K views. KP still has the opportunity to upload her version of the Q&A, which I assume would be revised, changed, and reach a much larger audience given her 123K sub count. I barely made a dent. And on a much more important note, KP admitted that she was going to strike people based on her levels of comfort over actually copyright infringement in a message that she sent to a fellow YouTuber that I am currently showing on screen. She actively uses malicious language such as "tell you little friends" and calls her uploads a violation of her boundaries and a threat to our safety, neither of which are parts or reasons for a copyright strike, as an infringement of copyright is the use of works protected by copyright without permission for usage where such permission is required, thereby infringing certain exclusive rights granted to the copyright holders such as the right to reproduce, distribute, display, or perform the protected work, or to produce derivative works, none of which has anything to do with the very subjective feeling of a threat, a violation of boundaries, or being upset over a leak. KP literally admits to falsely striking people based on her hurt feelings over valid copyright infringement, and that's not okay. I've already reached out to Team YouTube over it, and am currently waiting on entering AI response hell to fight tooth and nail for them to realize that I, Faulty from the Op Block, Becket from Cope and Seas, and apparently other smaller creators have been struck based on false premises. Truth of the matter is, KP is upset that an unhinged version of her spiteful anger was leaked. A Q&A in which she rewrites history based on her own safety report from February of 2024 to accuse Chris Aficionado, someone she held a grudge over for almost 2 years now based on a decade-old distasteful joke, of a literal sex crime. The original story, and I have to retell this here, is that Chris made up a story about jerking off in a shared bathroom at the con he attended with KP and others in 2015, got lightheaded from the orgasm, and fell face first into KP's underwear that she left in the shared bathroom. In her Q&A, KP tries to rewrite the story, without proof mind you, into Chris jerking off onto her clothes in order to frame it as if it actually happened, despite previously and repeatedly acknowledging it as made up, so she can point at him for sexual misconduct and argue that people like DA Games and Saberspark would be legally obligated to fire him, over a made-up joke from a decade ago. Even in her report, she's willing to misrepresent the very apologetic and genuine call with Chris as him admitting to sexual assault to try and force Chris into another call with her. She again makes her personal grievance with Chris, DA Games, and Saberspark's problem, claiming it reflects on the hiring ethics, when in reality all she cared about was Chris being fired and blacklisted from the community, something she called for at the end of her safety report. I've linked the damn thing in the description. It's supposed to be public, by the way, so don't try and strike me over it, KP. The other half of the Q&A is her being mad over being personally slighted again, this time spitting in the face of Becket from Cope and Seas, who lent her his platform and credibility in order to explain her thoughts, feelings, and whatever else during the Saberspark video debacle, and when he dares to be critical of her in point out that she's extremely biased and absolutely spiteful because she's mad at Saberspark for rejecting her, she tries to paint him as someone who doesn't care for children's safety, and even goes as far as to weaponize a message from Emmy, the alleged Saberspark victim that she's advocating for, possibly without permission. Not for Emmy or how she was allegedly treated, but her narrative for why Becket was way too mean to KP. KP attempts to use her Q&A, which is supposed to be the better version of her abhorrent apology, to still push the narrative she established based on her own bias and spite. She is a woman who's willing to lie to her audience about associations, such as saying she cut public ties with Courtney Pete while still engaging with her behind the scenes, and accuse men that personally heard her of actual literal sex crimes with literally no backing other than ChatGPT and her spite, such as Chris and Saberspark. This behavior can and should not be tolerated. If we want to talk about systemic issues, KP, your behavior is part of that. Falsely striking your critics over your fifis being heard, lying about sexual assault and platforming it out of spite and not for the sake of victims being heard, and lying to your audience for PR are massive issues that you cause and partake in. This video is meant to be a PSA as to what's currently going on and spread the current actions of this malicious, spiteful creature further than my 200 follow Twitter account to better content soon.